Before we begin, I do want to let you know that we will be taking questions and answers during the course of the webcast, and I'll be saving some for the end. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the question on the screen. You should see a console there. Hit the button, and you can ask. I'll field those and get those in. We'll also have a Q&A period at the end. On the next slide, you'll see the agenda today is introductions, background project drivers, tool approach and features, online demo, etc. And we'll move on to introductions. I'll briefly like to let you know that Grant Sharp will be joining us today. He's the manager of the South Orange County Watershed Management Area for Orange County Public Works. The Public Works is the lead agency with the Orange County Collaborative. They're working with their co-permittees across the county, and they have been the primary force behind establishing and utilizing the tools we're going to be discussing today. And with Grant, we have Aaron Poresky. He's the principal engineer is a principal engineer with Geosyntec Consultants. Geosyntec has a long and successful history working in Orange County. They have provided the engineering and project management for the OC Stormwater tools. They have also been a strategic partner with Sitka in Orange County and elsewhere, including the Tahoe Basin. And then finally, my colleague, John Burns, is an engagement manager for Sitka Technology Group. Sitka is the technology provider for the OC Stormwater tools. Sitka, in partnership with our Tahoe Basin clients, established the open source license, which was leveraged by Orange County. We have led the implementation of the technology that you're going to witness today. So with that, I'd like to hand this off to you, Grant.
Yeah, thank you very much, Damon. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here this morning talking about a project that really we've been working on for about the past 2 years, and glad that everyone could join us this morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got to this point, some of the background in project drivers. As Damon alluded to, the Orange County Stormwater Program is a collaborative program. We have 34 different permittees that make up the program. Those obviously include all the cities as well as the County of Orange and the Orange County Flood Control District. The County of Orange is the principal permittee under the 2 permits that regulate stormwater runoff within the county. We have one MS4 permit that covers really the watersheds from about Newport Bay north, and then a separate MS4 permit covering the watersheds from Aliso Creek south in the southern Orange County area. And so all told, we have about 10 hydrologic sub areas that make up the county, and we've been operating under a cost share budget really ever since we received our first MS4 permits in the early 90s. We do a lot of program implementation on a regional basis. Most of our public education and our monitoring is done on a regional cost share basis. As with many of the MS4 programs within the state of California, we do have an adaptive management approach, which is really driving program adaptation, evolution of our programs and implementation. So as we develop programs and implement those strategies, we're obviously keenly interested in tracking progress, in measuring how those strategies are helping us achieve the outcomes that we're shooting for. So monitoring and assessment is a big part of that. And then, it's a matter of assessing that information and then making the changes to the programs as needed. And of course, informing that our tools in various tools and data sets. So one of the key drivers of this project was, obviously we have a desire as a program to get the most bang for our buck. we want to implement cost-effective programs, but at the same time, we want them to help us achieve our goals. And so when we sat down to develop a water quality improvement plan for the watersheds of South Orange County about 3 or 4 years ago, there were several key questions that really, I think, rose to the surface and made it very clear that we needed to embark on a project that we're going to be, talking about today. Some of those questions were just simply understanding where the various assets that help us manage stormwater runoff are, understanding, what those assets are, where they are within the built environment, how they connect to the drainage infrastructure, and then expanding on that, being able to understand what condition they're in, how maintenance affects their performance. And then that really gets at answering the ability to measure and quantify what type of or what amount of pollutant load reduction benefits those assets are providing or maybe not providing. And then that gets us towards really being able to measure and quantify whether we're achieving our program goals and requirements. So the main goals of this project are really threefold. Number one, we absolutely needed to understand how stormwater runoff moves throughout the MS4 through our built environment. We need to understand where all the inputs and outputs are from the MS4 network. So a key part of this whole effort has been building a comprehensive database of our drainage infrastructure network, and then along with that, providing the ability to delineate catchments within that drainage infrastructure network, so that we understand, for every catch basin inlet in every storm drain pipe, that we understand with a fairly high degree of accuracy what areas are tributary to those points in the network. So that was absolutely
No, I think we might have lost Grant.
and that's been a big part of this. Made the decision we need. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit, but I think, yeah, we can hear you again.
Okay, I apologize if the audio is not very good. Thank you, Aaron. So in addition to the drainage infrastructure network, one of our goals was to develop a comprehensive asset inventory to be able to understand where all of our water quality assets are, how they connect to that drainage infrastructure, obviously critical attributes associated with those assets, and then the condition and maintenance and ownership of those assets. And then the third goal of this effort is to really provide the ability to quantify and track those assets within a consistent framework, so that we can actually make an educated assessment of what pollutant load reduction benefits those assets are providing. And then I think long term, we see this as a way to support our long-term planning and adaptive management process as we move forward. Next slide, please. So one of the key philosophies that I just wanted to touch on that I think we held firm to in going into this project is that data really is the core asset, not the data warehouse. I think we have an overall philosophy that rather than attempting to build one platform to house all of our data, I think we're of the belief that a federated an open data ecosystem with interconnected databases is really probably the right approach. And from that philosophy, I think we've been able to integrate a number of different digital assets and records into this effort. It's also because of the open data approach that's been taken, and Aaron and John are going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's allowed flexibility when it comes to on-ramping some of our permittees into the ability to use this tool. So that's been very helpful as far as getting jurisdictions who might be starting from different places when it comes to how their data is stored or being managed. And then also, I think one of the great things that this project has allowed us to do is really standardize how we're collecting data on BMPs. It's provided us an ability to meet some common needs in terms of providing an asset management solution that's going to help us address, we think, it's going to help us be in a good situation to address the statewide trash amendments. And we also see a lot of potential use cases of this tool when it comes to long-term watershed plan implementation. So I think that, so far we've seen Stormwater tools provide a great tool to meet some common needs that we certainly have within Orange County. And with that, I think transition over to Aaron.
Awesome, thank you, Grant. This is Aaron. I'm going to just talk about a little bit about our approach for developing the tool, but mostly tell you what is the tool today, and then John's going to provide a demo. But to start with, sort of, we were really excited to have this opportunity to propose on the project with the county, and we were leveraging some work we'd done with Sitka in the Tahoe region, and saw this to be a great sort of synergy and a good jumping off point from that work into the needs the county had. And so we took a few kind of key approaches from the very beginning and have carried those through. One is that this is a web-based application. It's a framework that really supports this multi-jurisdictional collaboration. Not everybody's inside of the same Esri enterprise, and so this provides an ability to authenticate different people and different users into the system. It also supports both desktop and field workflows, tablets, etc. Open source was a key decision. It was prompted by the fact that Sitka does open source work, and they have in the Tahoe area. We saw a good jumping off point to be able to realize efficiency for the county of Orange, and also the ability for this to support customization, prioritize enhancements driven by the Orange County permittees, but also potentially the ability to expand this into a larger community of folks that are interested in, in developing tools to meet these needs. And lastly, in the software development world, they call it agile development. We phased rollout. It was a get something in people's hands early, get them using it, getting feedback often, and we were able to do that really quickly, building on the open source code, and we got people using it within a few months after we started the project, started to get feedback, and used that to prioritize features and where people wanted to go with this. And that's been, a really, I think, a successful approach. So what is the tools? What are they today and what are they in the future? It is a common web application login. We have different roles defined, administrators, jurisdictional managers, and jurisdictional editors. So ranging from folks that are responsible for the inventory and to those that are maybe field crews that are entering data into the inventory. So the inventory module is the first place we started, and this is a way to track in a consistent framework structural BMPs as well as their attributes and the inspection and maintenance logs associated with those. The first case that we spun into more of a calculation engine was the trash module. So this is bringing together asset information with other GIS resources to start to provide real-time quantifications of how, where people are in terms of their progress. And in progress right now for us is a modeling module that goes beyond that initial trash, more simple trash calculation framework into more of a full-fledged water balance and pollutant load model that syncs up with the assets that are in the system. And supporting all this, as Grant mentioned, that one of the keys is you can't just drop a pin on a map and get the benefits. You need to know what drains to it, and you need to know that some characteristics of the land that drains to a BMP in order to understand its benefits. So incorporating a delineation workflows into this was also key. And this is where we've collaborated extensively with OC Survey as the managers of some of the stormwater network data and geoprocessing services, and we've built on top of those instead of replacing those in this tool. So the inventory module is a way to track structural BMP assets, their attributes, observations, which are effectively inspection observations that change over time and are intended to characterize the condition, maintenance tracking attributes, quantities tracked by maintenance crews when they're in the field and maintaining these, as well as a place to store the design and O&M documents right alongside of this asset in a web-based platform. So this is, we've configured it for Orange County. We started with the BMP types that are in the Orange County Technical Guidance document for land development projects, and we've added other BMPs like trash BMPs and low-flow BMPs that are more relevant for other aspects. But we've configured 24 types of BMPs and their associated observations in the tool. One of the key decisions we made from the beginning is for this to be configurable by county administrators, by users of the tool, so that if over time they want to add another BMP type or they want to change the observations, that's something that's in their hands to do. It doesn't require coming back to the software developer to support those changes. And so this also provides some extensibility to other user groups who might want to pick up this software, the ability to define the BMPs that are meaningful for your local jurisdiction or region. Field records are a key element that is designed to assess the more spatially temporal issues of, I'm going to go into the field, what am I going to do in the field? I'm going to potentially be improving my inventory, so able to collect more pictures, collect more attributes about a BMP that I didn't have in my existing records. But most importantly over time would be to record visual assessments, rapid visual assessments, and get a score about the BMP's condition and track maintenance. So this is a mobile optimized field workflow that lets somebody get out there on a tablet or a large phone and complete this. So assessments is a kind of a core function of this module. It's basically a rapid assessment methodology. It uses rapid visual observations and benchmarks and thresholds. So what are you seeing? What should the BMP be if it's an ideal condition? How far are we going to let it fall away from that ideal condition before it becomes penalized too much on a score? And then how do we weight these different observations? So this is a simple set of observations for a hydrodynamic separator, mostly focusing on pass-fail observations. Is it broken? Are there clogs? But then in terms of an analog observation, be the material accumulation in the system being an indicator that would drive the score. Other BMPs like bioretention, you might also be looking at vegetative cover, you might be looking at scour, you might be looking at a few other things to help define the condition of that BMP. Another key is the development site inventory. So everybody who has an MS4 permit anywhere in the country basically has been imposing requirements on on new development and significant redevelopment projects, and so these have accumulated since the 90s in people's planning records. So this is intended to provide a common place where the attributes and the locations of these projects can be inventoried, as well as uploading documents and associating structural BMPs with these plots of land effectively. And then finally, helping folks meet their annual or semi-annual or every 4-year type of O&M verification requirements for these land development projects by providing a form that can be completed in the field or at the desktop. So that's the inventory module in a real nutshell. It collects a bunch of information, but what are we going to do with it? I mean, one thing you can do with it is just simply look at it, filter the grids, view the dashboards to see which BMPs are in the most need of maintenance, et cetera. That's just a standalone inventory module function. But as we start to think about what do these assets mean relative to my progress towards requirements, the trash module is the first case where we've paired this BMP information up with spatial resources to estimate progress. So it gives a portal for folks focused on trash to get in there and manage their land use layers, their alternative and priority land use layers, add inventory, add attributes to their BMPs to indicate what level of trash capture that BMP provides. On-land visual trash assessments are a key part of trash amendments compliance, and so the ability to perform those in the tool is important. And then based on the kind of the intersection of those three things to be able to provide a progress report. So in terms of the BMP side of things, setting the trash capture performance rating, uploading or delineating in the tool, the delineation, the drainage areas to these BMPs, and then the trash amendments require regular inspections to document these are still working. So being able to attach those inspections to the BMP via the field visit workflow provides that record that I have a BMP out there, it's here, it treats this area, and it's being regularly inspected and maintained. OBTA is one where you're going to be out there doing some transects. Ideally, the person in the field is able to assign a certain drainage area or a certain influence area for that transect and say this transect and this score, which is associated with trash loading, corresponds to this area. And so we built a workflow that syncs up with the parcel data set for the county assessor's role that allows someone to walk a site or walk a transect and define and refine their study area for each transect, their assessment area, I should say, as they go, and then return to that assessment area over time and conduct repeat assessments, collect pictures, collect notes that support the score, the OBTA score that they provide. This then can get rolled into accounting methods for how much load is coming off of that site. And then the results maps. We look at the results in a few different ways. One is just simply area-based, and this most syncs up with the Track 1 compliance, but focused on how many priority land use areas are we treating with full trash capture or full trash capture equivalent. Also providing a view of load-based results. So even for jurisdictions that aren't in Track 2 now, giving them an assessment of where would you be sort of on load-based equivalency if you were to transition into Track 2. And then OBTA results, so being able to look at your jurisdiction on a map and see where different OBTA scores are more prevalent. So that's the inventory module and the trash module in a nutshell. And now I'm going to turn it over to John to give you a demo of how this kind of looks and feels in operation.
While we transition over to that, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. And I did get one question about if you can get a copy of the presentation, and I will be sharing a PDF with the link to the recording after the webcast. So that'll probably come in tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Grant, Aaron, and Damon. So now I'm going to take you out of PowerPoint land and into the wild world of a live demo. So I'm at qa.ocstormwatertools.org, which is our test or demonstration version of the site. Whenever Sitka stands up an application like this, we typically have two versions, the production or live version, and then the QA site that we use to demo the latest features and test out work without worrying about corrupting the actual live. Right? So I've logged into the platform here. Every user would have their own unique username and password. And what I want to do is basically just demo some of the features that Aaron and Grant talked about, but in the live web format here. So I'm logged in. I have access to a series of quick links for common tasks that might be of interest to me. And I'll start by just showing what it takes to add a BMP to the inventory. There's a number of fields that you're required to enter. Some of the fields are optional. Let's go ahead and add a hydrodynamic separator BMP. While I'm entering this form, I'm going to pop up another page so that can load while we're waiting. Get a couple of pages queued up. Select the jurisdiction. I'm a jurisdiction manager, my role in the tool. If I were associated with a single jurisdiction, I wouldn't be able to choose from the full list. So a jurisdiction manager for the County of Orange would not need to choose their own jurisdiction because the tool would already know that. Let's go ahead and make a full trash capture BMP so we can show how this BMP might be utilized in the trash module. After entering some of the required fields, I can choose the location. I can do that by clicking on the map. If I happen to be in the field performing this on a tablet, I could use my device's GPS to set the BMP to my current location as measured by the GPS. I'm going to cheat and just copy in a particular lat long that I want to use for this demo. And with that, I've defined a new BMP in the inventory, and I'm taken to the BMP Detail page, where I can see the basic information that I added on the Add a BMP page. I have the opportunity to associate any number of images of this BMP to help folks in the field understand that they are looking at the right asset. I can revise the location. I can add a delineation to this BMP, and I'll hop in there in just a moment. And I have the opportunity to set a number of attributes that are necessary for the modeling module that we're currently building, or to better understand the types of data that should be collected during field observations. I have the ability to launch a new field visit, define the funding sources for a BMP, and override any of the default benchmark or threshold observations that Aaron talked about. So first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and add a delineation to this BMP, which is going to take me to a new page, the delineation workflow. So in the delineation workflow, I have a number of options on how I'd like to delineate this BMP. I can start by selecting the Edit button to edit the delineation. The first thing I have to do is determine whether this is a BMP that's collecting surface flow only, or if it is a BMP that receives an in-system in the MS4 within a pipe that collects both pipe flow and surface flow. For what we're calling a centralized or a BMP that collects that pipe flow, I have an opportunity to automatically delineate based on the regional subbasins. This is a pre-existing layer that has been maintained by OC Survey that maintains kind of our understanding of the large quarter acre to acre plus size. 40 acres. Thank you, Aaron. So these are the really large neighborhood scale delineations that a piped BMP might be gathering. And I can use that as a starting point. Alternately, I can manually delineate the BMP using a pretty handy mobile-friendly kind of drag and drop type interface to manually define a catchment. There's also an opportunity to automatically delineate the catchment based on a digital terrain model. This was a collaboration with the OC Survey team, where the point location of the BMP is sent via a web service to Orange County's servers, where an Esri service was developed that would walk up the physical surface of the terrain to determine the BMP location. I'm not going to demo that one because it takes a number of seconds to compute. But after I've created my delineation, it might start as provisional, and then once I've tweaked it, I can mark it as verified. This BMP now knows its drainage area and can be used to calculate trash capture benefits or pollutant load reduction benefits. I'll hop back to the BMP detail page here and now quickly demonstrate how a person in the field might start a field visit. actually. Let's go to we've created this page called the Find a BMP page, which is meant to be a really mobile-oriented way to, when you're in the field on a tablet and ready to do an inspection, find the nearby BMPs. So if I were, I'm sitting here in Portland and there aren't any BMPs in the tool nearby, but if I were in Orange County and had a GPS-enabled device, I would hit Find Nearby BMPs, and it would zoom the map and find the BMPs near me. Instead, what I'll do is look for the BMP that I just entered, the demo BMP, zooms to it on the map, and I now have the opportunity to begin a field visit. In Orange County, they're interested in tracking whether it's a dry weather, wet weather, or post-storm assessment. That's a requirement of the permits. In the field visit workflow, I can choose to review the inventory data that I added through the desktop, or skip right into the assessment, later provide the maintenance and post-maintenance assessments. Hopping in here, here are the various observations that are required for this BMP, as Aaron described. The pass-fail observations all need to pass in order for this BMP to be considered functional. And then there's an opportunity to enter how much sediment has accumulated, which is the, as Aaron called it, the analog or more quantitative assessment. Okay, next I'll just hop over really quick to take a look at the trash module. After adding this BMP and performing an assessment, I don't think I queued up the trash module yet. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'll just show this really quick because it's really challenging during these demos. I would love to have an hour to walk through this with all of you in person, but I'm trying to honor the time and agenda. It's quite painful, to be honest, to move through this quickly. So this is the trash module. In the tool, through this top-level menu, we can hop around through the various menus, the various modules that Aaron described. Within the trash module, I'll go ahead and select the city of Tustin, who has been kind of spearheading the use of the trash module to show the various trash capture devices that have been installed and delineated. The priority land uses and alternate land uses are shown according to their trash capture, and we could see for a device that has, for an area that has a full trash capture device, you can actually find the BMP that is providing that trash capture benefit and click this link to go in and see some details as we saw previously. There's also the ability to get quantitative and understand actually how many gallons per acre per year of trash are being removed in these various locations and how that trash capture corresponds to the total target load reduction. And we can see the city of Tustin is doing very well here as they've got 12,000 gallons per acre per year captured via full trash capture devices towards their target of 14,000. So this is intended to be a live dynamic view that the jurisdictional managers and perhaps one day the regulators could log in and directly see and understand how their jurisdictions are making progress, and this can be updated in real time as the assessments are performed. I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to demonstrate the online visual trash assessment workflow. That's kind of similar to the maintenance and assessment workflow that we demonstrated earlier. But if anyone who's participating in the webinar today is interested in a deeper dive, we'd love to have you reach out and we can take kind of a more leisurely walkthrough of some of the features in the tool.
John, there was one question. This kind of came in, I think, when Aaron was still talking, so maybe one of you can decide how you like to answer it, but how can this module help quantify trash down to the required NPDES discharge limit to ensure compliance?
So it provides, I would say it provides two different methods for folks to track their progress. One simple track one method is to provide full trash capture type devices for all of your priority land use areas, or as you get into land substitution, there's an option for that within the regulations. And so it can provide a simple area-based accounting of which areas, I think they showed up as purple and green on the previous map that John showed, are fully addressed and which ones aren't, and start to be able to evaluate if there are areas that are priority but you can't address with full trash capture. Can you substitute in some alternate land uses that are being full trash captured? So that's one way it can get there. The other way is via load-based methods that John was just showing. So we can establish a trash generation rate for land uses. We can say what are the BMPs out there getting versus what what would be required if you got to full trash capture equivalent for all of your priority land uses. And so building up what am I achieving versus what that target load reduction is would be another method that the trash amendments provide to demonstrate compliance. And then finally, someone in track 2 could be able to use the OBTA workflows to be able to show that source controls and other non-structural methods, or a combination of source controls and structural methods, are achieving the full trash capture equivalents for the priority land uses. So there's it's supposed to support different pathways for folks to build up their inventory and demonstrate their progress.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. So, we'll take you out of the live demo and back to PowerPoint land here, where Aaron's going to talk about the current efforts that are underway in the tool.
Yeah, I want to make sure we leave enough time for Q&A at the end, and we are. So I'll cruise through this. I would say that, right now we're at a point of being really kind of in a sweet spot of having some help at the county and jurisdictional levels of people who are using this. We have some self-service bulk upload type of features, so people can bring their own data sets into the tool and start using it. We are, seeing people use different on-ramps into the tool. So sometimes they're bringing in data sets that were previously in GIS or previously in Excel and bringing them over into the tool, and then saying, hey, there's a few more attributes I'd love to collect the next time we're out there for maintenance. And so they're tasking their maintenance contractors or extra help or interns with getting out there and adding these these attributes to the record. It's something they've always wanted, but they haven't had a tool to be able to collect consistently. So we're seeing people adding into the tool both via these bulk uploads or also via their field workflows, kind of incidental to the field efforts they would have going on anyways. We are increasingly seeing the need to integrate with other asset management systems. Some jurisdictions want to manage all their work orders in the same public works asset management system that they use for things like stop signs and sidewalks, and BMPs are one public asset, and so we don't want to replace that. We think we can augment that, but it means that for some of the more stormwater specific pollutant load estimates and attributes that are specific to BMPs, we can integrate those assets into this tool and give the stormwater program managers who are responsible for NPDES compliance a one-stop shop where they can see their stormwater BMP assets and the relative parameters around them. So that's one effort ongoing. The other effort ongoing that's exciting to me is building out this modeling module. So taking the similar approach to trash, but now you've invested in your assets, you've invested in your drainage areas. Let us do the calculations behind the scenes with an engine that's going to return the stormwater runoff and pollutant load reductions, as well as the dry weather flow reductions and water balance. And so trying to build a system that people can start seeing the progress they're making on their pie chart, as BMPs are implemented. And just some simple mock-ups of where we're going with this, being able to burrow down to the BMP detail and see what is this BMP doing for me relative to pollutant load reduction, but also then being able to look at a network view, a watershed view of saying, okay, within this watershed, what have we achieved? What are my BMPs that are there in this watershed? What land development sites are there? And being able to assess things at that level. So the future roadmap, one of the things that's come up, of course, is that existing BMPs are only part of the story. When we have planning objectives, getting to future BMPs and being able to evaluate the effect of those future BMPs, the benefit of them in a consistent space really helps with prioritizing projects and supporting funding requests. So building on top of what is the sort of the built and implemented BMPs, with now providing jurisdictions with a place to put future BMPs into the tool and see what they would provide, and potentially promote those then out of their jurisdictional sandbox into more of an external project proposal, and using this to support the Stormwater Resource Plan and IRWM project slates to support funding requests. And so this is another dimension on scenarios, but its underlying questions are the same. We're asking the question of what is the estimated benefit of a BMP at a given location. In each of these tiers, we're just allowing folks to categorize the projects we will be in. So we see this kind of being a high priority next step after completing the modeling module. So with this, I kind of wanted to just turn it back to Grant for some wrap up before Q&A.
Yeah, thanks very much, Aaron. We thought it'd be helpful just to offer a few reflections and lessons learned. Given that we're only a couple years into this effort, we still have a long way to go. But I think one of the things we knew going into this, but we definitely have a much better understanding of it now, is that building a good inventory of stormwater assets is not an easy thing. It takes a lot of effort. There are a lot of challenges, especially when you're attempting to do it across a region. And there is a critical need for providing flexible on-ramps. Not every city, every jurisdiction is going to be starting at the same point as we talked about earlier. So building in flexible on-ramps has been a key element to this effort so far. I think also capitalizing on where the sort of the hot topic or the high priority has been helpful for us. There's been a lot of interest in gearing up and in preparing for the statewide trash provisions. I think we've attempted to capitalize on that in terms of developing the trash module within Stormwater tools. One thing that I absolutely love about this, and I cannot speak highly enough about the job Sitka and their team have done, as well as with Geosyntec and Aaron in developing this. But it's been very easy for us to bring in help and support and resources to work on this. And what I mean by that is we wanted to really we wanted to be able to optimize and maximize, get the most out of the resources that we have. We've been able to bring in interns and we have some extra help positions that we brought in over the course of this past summer with I would say very minimal time spent learning how to use Stormwater tools. They were able to jump in and really provide some great support. In fact, we still have a team. A couple folks, Margaret Grenier and Kayleen Chang, who are out in the field this morning using Stormwater tools. They've been really helpful in assisting some of our cities in getting their data into this. I think the agile approach that Sitka and Geosyntec elected to take with this has been really helpful. With that approach, we've been able to provide feedback. The users, in terms of our jurisdictions who are using the tool, have been able to provide feedback, and at certain key points, they've asked for enhancements or different functionalities that the Sitka and Geosyntec team have been able to provide. I think that's been really helpful in terms of allowing us to stay focused on user priorities. One of the great things that we're getting out of this also is the standardization of the data that we're collecting, not just on the stormwater assets, but also we've been able to build a comprehensive countywide stormwater drainage network, so that we're not trying to piecemeal a bunch of different data sets together that don't match up. We now have the ability to standardize the way we collect data on BMPs and drainage infrastructure. And as Aaron alluded to, we have been able to use some in-house expertise provided by our OC survey group, which is part of OC Public Works. They have some very skilled GIS analysts And we fortunately here at OC Public Works, we have access to the Esri universe of GIS software. We've been able to leverage that, and with the help of Esri, we've developed some pretty cool geoprocessing tools. So a lot of the background data that you're going to see in Stormwater tools is actually being served up through OC Public Works ArcGIS servers, and it's displaying data that's being managed directly by our OC survey team. However, we're able to bring it into this ecosystem and use it pretty effectively. I think the other great thing about building this on an open data platform, as Aaron mentioned, we're not looking to replace an asset management system that might already be in use in a particular jurisdiction, but we have the ability, through an API with the open data structure, we have the ability to federate our data sources here, and so we can augment what might already be in use rather than replace it. And I think that's really key in terms of being able to on-ramp other users. We're really hoping with this to build a community of users around this, so that we can improve the data and increase our understanding of how stormwater runoff moves throughout the network, as I said earlier, but also what impact these BMPs have on it. So those are a few reflections and lessons learned thus far. I think I'll turn it back over to Aaron for the next slide.
Thanks, Grant. Actually, this is John. I'm going to take this last slide, and then we'll move into the Q&A. I see a couple of questions have started to queue up here. So before we get into the Q&A, I just wanted to talk about opportunities for others to participate in this platform. This is not a subscription service. This is not a proprietary product. This is, when we say open source technology, this is a public investment that were initially funded by the Tahoe region, the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection, and the Lahontan Regional Water Board, and the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. And they had just kind of a philosophy that the public investments they were making in technology should be available to other agencies to use as they see fit. And that was not entirely altruistic. This is really in the idea of mutual benefit. By placing an open source license on this, any investments that are made in other regions like Orange County are available for anyone to use and enhance and explore. So some of the features we built for the treatment BMP flexible configuration that came through the Orange County's needs have now been integrated back into the Tahoe platform. So we're really looking to expand this into this community of co-benefits so that others can start to use what Tahoe and Orange County have funded, and that as others join the community, there will be opportunities for Tahoe and Orange County to look at the needs and features that other regions might build and integrate those into their own version of the tool. There's different tiers of adoption that are available. If what you see is useful to you today, you can take it and run with it. You can self-manage and host this. There's a level of technical expertise and sophistication that's required, but that is something that we encourage and hope to see. There's also opportunities to work with Sitka and Geosyntec or other vendors of your choosing to take this technology and run with it. By joining the open source platform, if you're a smaller organization or if your requirements are more flexible, you can use what you've seen today with minimal upfront cost. If you're a larger organization or your requirements are more specific, you can change and tweak and make this be what you need through your internal technical resources or through the help of outside consultants to make this what you need it to be. So we're just hoping to see this community of co-benefit begin to grow. And this isn't just an idea. This is something that we've seen happen through other open source technologies that have come out of the Tahoe Basin. Sitka has a platform called Project Firma for tracking project accomplishments that has been used now nationwide by jurisdictions, agencies as small as watershed councils and as large as federal agencies like the Bureau of Reclamation. So we're really excited to see this model of co-benefit communities move into the stormwater space. So So with that, we'll turn it over to a Q&A.
I'm impressed. We have like 9 minutes for Q&A, and I do have a number queued up, so I'll just kind of work through them.
That we don't get to today, we can reply offline and answer.
Exactly.
Is that right, Damon?
Yep, that is correct. So the first one I have that came in a while ago is, does this allow for the input of trash removed from a full capture device or collected by the Track 2 BMPs? It would be great to be able to show the trends over time and the impacts to water quality. I'm not sure who would be a good one to answer that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've obviously got we've got a classification of full trash capture or not, but I think this question gets at whether or not, if you can track how much actual trash is coming into the BMPs, and I think that we do provide that opportunity via virtue of the field workflow. When somebody's out there in the field, they have the ability to make a measurement of how much trash was in these systems when they were cleaned out, and make a partition between trash, green waste, and sediment, when it comes to the clean out volumes. And if people are using that attribute consistently and filling it out, it would be a good way for, the actual loading rates to be improved over time, and, understanding of where we actually have hotspots and not by collecting those data. Right now, we don't have any, built-in intelligence about using those attributes to improve loading rates, but it's intended to be a consistent way of tracking it, so that in the future, when additional data become available, or when your data set becomes big enough, you would be able to do something with those attributes. So I do think that's part of the long vision, is using the actual maintenance quantities to do both loading rates, but also on other BMPs. If you know how often you're having to clean out sediment, well, that gives you the ability to then have predictive maintenance about what your intervals of clean out might be for different BMPs.
And I'll just add that in the trash module, the current visualizations that we've focused on are kind of current snapshots displayed spatially and through some kind of dashboard level statistics. But to build visualizations to show trends over time is something that I think would be a very valuable future enhancement to the platform.
Great. And then another question here is, can an agency upload BMP info and attributes via an Excel spreadsheet, or is it manual entry, one BMP at a time?
Yeah, there's sort of 3 ways to build out the BMP inventory. One at a time. You're not going to want to do that if you've got more than a couple dozen BMPs. There's a bulk uploader that takes a spreadsheet from a template to bring in BMPs in mass. If you can format your existing BMP inventory easily into that Excel spreadsheet. Alternately, you could work to do an import directly into the database through SQL queries. That's not something that's accessible to an end user, but it's something that we have done for some of the co-permittees in Orange County. So sort of 3 ways to do it. I would only imagine doing the one way at a time that I demoed when your existing inventory is well fleshed out and you're adding a minimal number of new inventories over time, or minimal number of new BMPs to your inventory over time.
Most users have taken the approach of the bulk upload, and we currently have a team of folks at the county who is, helping the permittees bring their data into that template and then implement the bulk upload. So it's something that's the consultant team isn't really involved in that anymore, which I think is a good sign of maturation of the program, that it's becoming more self-sufficient on bringing information into the tool.
Great. The next question, I have a number still. How can this database help fill in data compliance gaps for cities that have limited to no storm drain data for engineered channels, with so many stormwater inlets within a built-out urban watershed in Orange County region? It was a little kind of hard to understand that last part.
Built out.
Built out.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. How can this database help fill in data compliance gaps for cities that have limited to no storm drain data for engineered channels, with so many stormwater inlets with a built-out urban watershed in Orange County region?
Yeah. I mean, the piecing together drainage network information and knowing where your inlets are is a huge task. Most of the workflows we have in this are built on top of a network that somebody may already have. I think that a traditional field survey method of getting out with an Art Collector app or some other sort of survey method to go out and populate all the inlet locations, get them into an Esri geodatabase, and then from there bring them into the tool it's probably it would be the best best workflow. That's the workflow we tend to advise, because that's when it comes to just identifying points and the type of feature that can be easily supported by a simple web app that most people have, or sorry, a simple mobile app that most people have access to. I think carrying around a web-based application to do a full inventory of inlets is probably kind of a mismatch of tools for the job. But I would acknowledge the importance of this question, which is that getting underlying assets, and that's really been an effort that the county and the county survey department undertook in collaboration with the permittees to build these underlying Esri geodatabases of storm pipes and inlets. And that's been a parallel track and sort of very much a mutually beneficial track to the web-based tool, because as Grant mentioned, we're sucking that information in. We're reading it effectively as a service into our tool, so that someone using the tool can view that, but they're not editing or manipulating that through the tool. So not totally sure if I answered your question. Feel free to follow up with me if I got off on the wrong track on that one.
Maybe we could advance to the next slide with your guys' contact information to reach out if need be. Here's another question. Can you share, this may or may not be easy enough to do, but can you share the 24 types of BMPs in the inventory that are in line with TGD+?
We can share that in response. We can share that in written form in follow-up from this call, for sure.
That would be probably easier. And then another question is, what's the basis of your pricing structure?
So the custom software development is done as professional services work for hire on an hourly basis using pretty standard consultant rates. Sitka does host this application for Orange County at a level that's close to our costs. We don't make money from hosting. We're really here to build the custom software. This is, as we said, with the open source license, you could take this technology and bid it through an RFP and see what sort of prices you would get for a firm like Sitka or others in the industry to host it for you, or if you're a larger agency with a sophisticated internal IT department, you can take and run with this on your own. But the pricing structure is professional services for customization and consulting, and then a hosting fee that is typically $1,000 to $2,000 a month is a typical range for that.
Okay, great. So I think we probably have time for two more questions. So the next one is, could the tool potentially be tailored to accommodate a trash assessment protocol other than OBTA? Is it just a matter of that alternative protocol having an analogous scoring system?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think that's a fair assumption. The idea that you're going to be out there walking a site and wanting to define your assessment area based on selecting parcels within that site that you've walked and maybe refining the boundaries of those, those parts of the workflow would be totally transferable to any scoring system that you wanted to use. Right now, the actual selection of the score really only comes at the end, after you've collected pictures, after you've recorded notes, after you've defined your transect and your assessment area. So, swapping in a different scoring system, as part of this would be customization, but in terms of I'm thinking it would be a really minor change to the code to support a different scoring scheme. So.
Okay, this might be the last question that we'll take today. The others that I have not asked, I'll let you know that I'll get those to the presenters, and I'll make sure that they follow up with you with your personal question. But this last one that came in, is there the ability or any plans to add ability to enable upload assessment data collected via a field data collection app?
The dominant field data collection app would be Esri Collector or Survey 123, which by design syncs to ArcGIS Online, where there's a web service available to bring that data in. So it would be a really natural point of integration and pretty similar to existing integrations that we have to Esri services in the platform. We've also talked about building custom mobile applications for the field surveys. We haven't wanted to recommend an investment there yet, hoping that the web application would meet that requirement. But we're certainly interested in exploring, kind of custom mobile applications if that was a use case that was needed. But we think integrating with Esri's mobile applications is pretty viable as well.
Yeah. So I think from a practical perspective, that would mean that you set up a form carefully in the ARC collector or Survey 1, 2, 3 environment with fields that match up with fields that OC Stormwater tools would recognize. You use that form, and then it goes into a database that then can be served into Stormwater tools, so that the data you're collecting in the field via one app syncs up with parameters that are in Stormwater tools, and you're able to see that information. I think, as John mentioned, that's probably the easiest and simplest pathway forward. It's just a matter of making your parameters in your Esri form line up with the parameters in Stormwater tools, so it's viable and probably necessary in some environments where self-service is spottier, or for other efficiency reasons. There's a desire to have
more efficient.
A desire to have an offline mobile app.
Okay. This would probably be very easy to answer, but is this tool applicable outside of California? So I'll sneak that one in before I
would say that the general needs to know where your BMPs are, to know what condition they're in, and to know what progress they're making, are probably applicable in a lot of places. The really demand to know what progress you're making against targets kind of depends on how rigid your regulatory structure is and how aggressively you need to be implementing these plans and demonstrating progress. But the need to simply, inventory across different jurisdictions in a consistent format, I think, is pretty transferable. So I'm in Oregon myself. I could see jurisdictions here finding some utility in it that isn't specific to California by any means. So
great. Well, I thank you so much, Grant. I really appreciate you taking the time, and Aaron and John. It's been, I think, very informative. We had a really good turnout today. We did record today's webcast, and I will be posting that to the Sitka website, and all registrants will get an email with a link to that, and I'll also include a link to the PDF of the presentation. And feel free to share the recordings with your colleagues. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, I really appreciate your interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.